Nqobile Mbatha is an attorney, human rights advocate, and social entrepreneur passionate about advancing health equity and social justice. He is the founder of the Nqobile Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to HIV awareness, education, prevention, and advocacy. She's also the founder of SNC Creatives, a media and communications agency that helps organizations tell impactful stories through strategic content and digital engagement. Her work sits at the intersection of HIV, human rights, youth empowerment, and community development. This is further reflected in her recently completed master's dissertation in human rights law, which explored the HIV disclosure dilemma and the delicate balance between public health interest and the rights to privacy, dignity, and equality. Through advocacy, storytelling, and community engagement, Nqobile is committed to challenging stigma, amplifying underrepresented voices, and fostering conversations that inspire meaningful social change. Enjoy this conversation with me.
Listen, your social media is hi. The social media is nice, Mo.
Thank you. Exactly that. When people meet me in person, I'm just like, I want it to be that is who you know. Pela. I don't try.
Yes.
And I always tell people, I'm a lawyer, yes, but I have a personality. I have interest outside of just the legal fraternity. So I'm going to be human. I'm going to have a fat chat with you before anything else.
But tell me, what led you to like start social media? Because I know most people are shy, to start, especially in your field.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're the second person I've spoken to that, is an attorney that is really out there on social media that's willing to teach. So what really caused you to start?
In all honesty, I took a while to get Instagram or any social media platform, let me say, because I grew up in the world's strictest household. My parents only allowed me to have a phone after matric. So you can imagine, starting social media was like, yes, let's go. And essentially, before I got to Nqobile now, essentially it was just a form of expression for me. It was just me showing up in my best self, also sharing my experiences, because a lot of the times I would share my varsity experiences or life in general and what I'm doing, and also just my journey within the legal fraternity as a candidate attorney. So starting it came naturally for me because I wanted to put myself out there. However, having a purpose for it, the older I grew, that's when I took it more seriously and decided, you know what, this is something I can utilize. I believe in the power of social media in a good way. Popular, opinions or, it can be utilized. So for me, when I started my social media platforms, I wanted to be intentional about it.
Exactly. Tell me one thing, because I had another attorney. You may have seen her, Mpoentle, her episode.
I did.
Yes. So I wrote to her and I used advocate, and I forgot to ask her in the episode, and then she said, no, I'm an attorney. I don't want to be. I found that I was really happy because that's sort of an ethical thing. She said, I don't want to be labeled as something that I'm not. So there's an attorney, there's an advocate. What's the difference?
So an advocate is someone, they obviously study the board exams like we do, but they tend to write a little extra than we do. We have 4 exams. I do believe they have, I think, two extra outside of that. And then they go through pupillage. In how they receive instructions, they can only practice by receiving instructions from an attorney. And that's where we come in as attorneys. We can practice in our own accord. With them, if there's a matter, they are instructed as counsel on a matter. Depending on how big it is as well, it differs. So essentially, we are just Nqobile Mbatha, but they go by advocate Smanmani or so and so. So yeah, that's where it usually just it's usually the
yeah. So for you, you would then need to write 2 extra exams now to be called advocate Nqobile Mbatha.
And then and then you do your pupillage. It's equivalent to articles. Like how when you're an attorney, or you are studying to be an admitted attorney, you go through your 4 year, depending what degree you do. You do, obviously, I did my straight LLB, which took me like 4 years. Then after that 4 years, you then have to do your articles, which is roughly 2 years. You can shorten it depending on whether or not you're able to write your board exams sooner or enroll for your practical legal training. Shortly after those board exams, that's when you make an application to the High Court to then be admitted as an attorney. And then you can start practicing, depending on whether or not you want to enroll yourself in the role for practicing attorneys or a non-practicing attorney, because sometimes people go into corporate at whatever time.
Oh, so the articles, what is that? Is that like a training or is it like an exam? What
It is
are
the
articles?
trenches. It is the trenches. I'll start there, but it's practically you having to go to a law firm and say, guys,
Okay.
I just got my degree. Can you please train me into whatever attorney that you either see fit or I see fit for myself? Because for me personally, I was intentional in which firm I chose to go to serve my articles of clerkship, and also the exposure and experience that you get. It's important if you decide to want to be an admitted attorney, whenever you do or serve your articles, research the firms and what, from example, like what services that they offer, because when you're admitted after the 2 year period, it's either you continue working for that firm doing the one thing or the two things that you were doing or practicing within that firm. But now it tends to become a little bit more difficult and a bit different when you now go into a different firm that practiced a law that you had no exposure to. So articles essentially are important for you to learn, especially for the type of attorney that you intend to want to become for yourself. But also, I always say, do as much as you can within that period, because that's where you get to make mistakes. Because the moment you become an admitted attorney, there's no leniency. There's no longer any leniency, because now you're an attorney admitted. There's a certain level of you're supposed to be able to research. You can't say I don't know something. You at least need to know, where do I find it? Where do I search? And articles are very essential for that period of your career.
That's interesting. Oh my goodness. So you decided you want to do human rights law. So that's the kind of firm you went for.
Funny enough, I have a whole backstory because it didn't start there. So I served my articles when I first started in my first year. I served at a law firm that did criminal law.
Okay.
And when I tell you litigation was not my fave, I knew instantly. I think I served only for 8 months. And then I just resigned and I jumped into a firm that did conveyancing. And I remember when I was serving through that 8 month period, there was only 1 or 2 files that I had that dealt with conveyancing or property law. And I was like, I really enjoy this. What's this? Can I get more of this? I get that I had to go to court, but can I get more of this? And obviously the firm was small. They majored in criminal law and attending to those types of matters apart from conveyancing. So I was fortunate enough. I was intentional, in fact, also when I was now looking for a firm to transition. I narrowed down all the firms in terms of what services they offered, and I was looking specifically for conveyancing. And I remember I was very strict. Then I was fortunate enough to get into the firm where I was able to serve 2 full years of conveyancing or property law, and something that I really fell in love with. I always tell the story because I ended up having to leave that specific firm, go practice every other type of law, and I still circled back to conveyancing or property law, which is something that I really love outside of human rights law. My journey into human rights law was so different because when I enrolled for my master's, that was when I had more opportunities where I spoke to lecturers and I was like, listen, I'm interested in this field of law, but I kind of don't know how to branch into it. Yes, I'm doing advocacy through my NPO and so forth, but I really would love to utilize the potential of this degree. And I was fortunate enough that I think a year in, or like a couple of months in, there was a post that they put out for an internship at the Lawyers for Human Rights. I remember applying for that job and them going, girl, do you know you are an attorney? So how are you going to be interning? And I'm like, yeah, I know 100%. In fact, the main reason is that, to actually support my plea or my application is the fact that you can rely on the fact that I've done everything else. You have to be certain that job, and I'm going to be that passionate about it because it's intentional. And I was fortunate enough to.
Yeah.
Then and that's how I got into human rights law, because I enrolled at the Lawyers for Human Rights. I put
Oh
myself out
my
there at
gosh.
that point, as scary as it was, because when you go in, it's
Mm,
completely different. Advocacy on its own is
mm,
you
mm.
obviously campaigning and pushing for the vision or the passion that you aspire to, to put out there. But when it's human rights law, you are now dealing with people's lives, actual people that have real life problems. And that's where the true test
Really,
into whether or
yo.
not you are in this. And the saddest reality of it is it doesn't pay. Obviously, it is most of
Yo.
the Lawyers for Human Rights as a non-profit. So when
Mm,
you go in, you genuinely go in with passion. And I always tell people that if you're
mm.
not doing something you love, you're going to back out. So you have to carry
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
That's basically
Exactly.
how I got into human rights law, through my degree and my master's, because I was so intentional about applying for it. Because when I got
Wow.
into my master's, I already knew my topic. I think I knew it within my
Yes.
year of varsity, so I was just like, I'm just not sure. Is now the time? So when I essentially registered for my master's, I was intentional
Mm,
from the to say, this is my topic. This is where I'd like to be. How can you guys assist me? And I spoke to
mm,
my
mm.
leaders. They gave me feedback, and I took that, and that's how I landed in human rights law.
Really. Yowena, congratulations, because that is what drew me to your post. Like, I was so intrigued because also you look so young. So I was wondering, she's looking very young for this master's degree.
Shout out
I
to my
was
mom's
really,
genes.
Yowena, hi, your mom did well. Your mom did well. Listen,
Thank you.
congratulations. Congratulations. So what's the next step now? You've attained your master's now. You're continuing still working with the organization that you're working with.
So, what happened was, with my internship, I had to then go back into property law. Um,
Okay.
Remember, I circled back and I said, in all like versions of law that I practiced, or areas of law that I was in, there was none
Mm,
that really made me feel at home and grounded than property law and
yeah.
conveyancing. And fun fact, it was due to the women that I worked with. I always say women are, there's nothing, you must
Oh.
understand that there's nothing that goes great without women. And
Oh.
my direct line was the coolest attorney I've ever met. I speak any podcast I'm in, when people ask me my articles, it spreads,
Yes.
because usually the conception, the misconception, not even misconception, it's the reality that most people don't
Mm.
have the experience when it comes to articles. But I had the greatest, and I
Oh.
remember going into practice and working for different law firms and going, man, I miss my old
I want
senior,
to be
because
there.
yes, because she
I
sold me.
want to
She
be
really sold me.
there.
And full circle moment, I'm back working with her right
Oh
now.
man.
I do human rights law simultaneously. Like it's a side by side thing. I feel like when whatever it is that you love draws you towards it, there's no way that you can't come back to it. You always circle back. You
Yeah,
always circle.
exactly. So tell me something. I know we
Okay.
are deviating from what we were planning to discuss, but I'm just interested now, really interested. People seldom speak about property law. What is property law? The reason why I'm asking as well is that, okay, my small experience, my little bit of experience, I think maybe I've been
Mhm.
to law firms 2 or 3, if not 4 times, where I haven't seen any of, brown people within property law. So I want to
Mhm.
know the reason for that and what is property law.
So essentially, conveyancing, it's referred to as conveyancing, but property law is usually the easier term. It's layman's term. So
Mm,
when I speak to someone and they're like, what do you do? When I
yeah.
say conveyancing, I've lost them if they haven't bought a
Yeah.
property, or let alone sold a property. So it basically
Yes.
is for me, essentially, you have to be a conveyancer first, right? However, you can still
Okay.
practice. But so long as you have someone who is looking at your files or your matters and assisting your guiding, this is someone who preps your documents and signs off on them.
Okay.
That would be an admitted conveyancer. Conveyancing or property law is basically we handle the whole transfer process from you selling your property or purchasing your property. So we handle everything
Mm,
from start to finish. It is a long process that, obviously, because I also don't want to deviate, but because you asked,
mm.
It is from the time we receive our instructions from estate agents. We then will
Okay.
attend to the sellers and the purchaser. We basically contact them. And then from there onwards, we do our deed search through the deeds office. And then we basically are the people that give you your title deed at the end. It's a lengthy process, but
Oh,
because I don't
yes,
want to
yes, yes.
expand into it and confuse the audience
Yeah.
in general, but we are the attorneys you contact when you want to sell your property or you want to
Oh.
purchase property in essence.
Aha, now I understand it. Because I mean, those documents come so thick, and you're thinking, I'm not reading this, but you guys have to read and try to summarize
We
for
do,
someone to
we do.
understand.
No, we do. A lot of times when we interact with clients, especially, depending whatever field you're in, I always try to make law as palatable as I possibly can because not everyone understands what a conveyance is. So even when I'm calling the client to explain, yes, they know that they've purchased property, but they're not expecting to have a lawyer call them. They're like, why are you calling me? I just spoke to an agent.
Yes.
Where do you come in? And I want to explain that process to say, I'm the one that's going to be drafting your transfer documents. You're going to be signing with me, and I will literally draft you your title deed that will be sent to the deeds office. That will either come to you or go to your bond attorneys if you happen to register a bond on that property.
Aha. No, no, no. It's clear. Okay. Okay. Because we can go on this, eh? We can go on. As a human rights lawyer, somebody interested in human rights, if you had to sit down with a human rights activist or human rights lawyer, who would it be, past or present? And what would the conversation be about? What would you ask them, or what would your interest be in that conversation?
This one is an easy Umamwini Madikizela Mandela. I
Oh,
think I
oh,
was always fascinated by how resilient she was. And I think one of the questions that I definitely ask her, because I'm an empath, right? And I understand
yes,
that in everything that you pour out into people or the universe, you also have to understand that you can't pour from an empty glass. So with her, I think one of the questions that I
true.
asked her is, how did you still find the power, the
Oh,
strength, let alone to put yourself into the front line of protecting people and them expecting you to show up at your best self, as your
all the
strongest self,
time.
providing that, that support. I'm always fascinated about a person's mental health or mental being
Hmm.
showing up for other people, because my first question is, I wonder if they're taking care of themselves the way that they're taking care of other
Yes,
people so well.
yes,
I think that
yes.
would be the first line. That I know it has nothing to do with human rights,
Yeah,
but
but
it is important.
exactly, because you can imagine she had a husband in prison, raising two daughters. She had the community, looking after the community. But I can understand that's an important question to ask, because often, people with your character, empaths, and I know, and it's exactly why you have an MPO, but we're going to get to that, is because you care deeply. You actually feel someone's pain. So I can
Literally.
understand why you would ask that, Yeah, she was a really strong woman, eh? I
No,
wonder.
she definitely was. She was resilient.
Yeah,
It takes a lot from you, and just she carried the nation. Essentially, I don't even
true.
understand how you still are able to carry that much grace through everything that they went through as
Exactly.
human rights activists.
You know that lady, hey? Okay. Look, I love her too. I love her too. And the documentary they made about her was actually very eye-opening,
Very.
because we only saw her from the news, what they were reporting about her. But I think I see why you would ask that question about her. So tell me something. You now got your masters, and you now filled with knowledge. But in the study, what would you say is still the misconception in people in general about HIV disclosure and also about individual rights? What
Okay.
would you say?
So I spoke a lot about this. I think I mean I made quite a few videos about it before even posting about my dissertation, because from experience, disclosure isn't as black and white as people assume it is, and that's one of the biggest misconceptions that you'll often get or hear from people, especially when it comes to, why didn't they just tell someone that they were positive?
Hmm.
It comes with a lot of factors to consider, and most of them I spoke on, but the dynamic of the relationship itself is one of the biggest ones, and just the stigma. As much as we
Yeah.
are in a country where we openly talk about it, stigma is
Mm.
still there. 100% still there. I still get
Oh
asked
my
questions
gosh.
that I assume in 2026 we should not be asking
Yes.
such questions. And as it still stands right now, disclosure isn't black and white.
Mm.
We have to consider what
Mm, mm,
other
mm,
people
mm,
in
mm, mm.
these respective relationships are going through before any
Mm.
disclosure can come about that easily. And one person's self-awareness, because I always
Yeah.
say I destigmatized myself before I allowed the world into knowing my status, so that by the time anyone says anything that is misinformation or something that I do not agree with, it
Yeah.
doesn't touch me like that, you know. But it's not the same with everyone else. Some people genuinely fear being judged, being put in a
Mm,
situation
mm.
of being questioned or probed. How did you get it? What were you doing, you know? And the
Yes.
most common stigma is the assumption that you either were sleeping around, and then when you
Yeah.
either tell someone that I was born with it, it's somehow more palatable. And that shouldn't be the
Mm.
case. We're both the same. We're both positive, and we both also require the same sense of empathy. So when it comes to disclosure, it's not as simple as people paint it out to be. And
Mm,
that's
mm, mm.
came to my dissertation as well.
Gosh. And if then the HIV positive individual discloses to someone, and
Mhm.
then that person tells their friends or whoever, is there a case to be made for that
Yes,
individual? Ah.
100%. What people need to understand is that HIV disclosure in itself, there is no legal duty in South Africa as it
Mm-hmm.
stands, let alone we don't even have any HIV specific crimes. But disclosing, there is no legal duty. So when it comes to pushing or probing someone to say, you should disclose, it's not. This is where I always then say, the law needs to understand that you're dealing with human beings, and you can really tell from how they attend to HIV transmission, because we don't
Yeah.
have an HIV specific crime, because the assumption is that the law is thinking you are going to be smart enough to protect yourself,
I
and they
see. I
cannot force
see.
you. They cannot force you, right? The best case scenario is them advertising abstinence, the usage of condoms, introducing you to PrEP, but they can't force you to put yourself in a position where you protect yourself. But then when it comes to then asking, why isn't the law protecting me because this person's positive? They didn't tell me. That's when they cannot interject, because you have that responsibility on your own to look out for
I
yourself. Whereas
see.
we have to be able to balance a person's right. You have the
Mm,
right
mm.
to your health, right? But the next person is also positive, has their right to privacy. And how a person decides to disclose is solely up to them. But you also carry that responsibility to protect yourself in any worst
Mm.
case. I mean, if we're looking at it from a human perspective, if we're going to be very honest, you would think if you are in a relationship with someone, they owe you that
Yeah.
decency at least to share,
Yes. Yes. To
right?
share at least. Yeah.
To allow you to
Pre-warn
make
you.
exactly to allow you to make an informed decision to say, okay, if you're positive, that's fine. What do you require from my side to show you support, or how can I
Mm.
protect myself? And then it becomes a conversation between two people, and the law isn't there at
Mm.
that point. So it can only protect you to a certain extent to the aftermath of everything. And
I
that's literally what I had
see.
to unpack and talk about, because and as much as we utilize the law to protect human beings, some of the
Mm,
discrepancies
mm,
tend to
mm,
pop
mm.
out is that the law doesn't make provision for the lived experiences of the people that actually have HIV, but
Mm.
also the people that have to interact with the people that are HIV positive. You know?
Yes. Yes. Oh my
So
goodness. Hey,
yeah,
this is tricky, hey? It's
very, very
tricky.
tricky, very, very tricky. It's not as black and white. I always say the law sometimes
Yeah.
it needs to play catch up in certain instances, but also you have to
It's very
understand that the
tricky.
law is going to evolve at certain points. But until then, you have to protect yourself.
Hmm. So, as a country now, are we doing enough to sort of educate about disclosure? And
Mhm.
And also, when it comes to stigma, are we progressing in terms of trying to reduce the stigma of HIV? Because I'm also concerned whether maybe perhaps in some ways stigma also is evolving and is changing as we
Yeah.
live on. What is your opinion on that? What do you think when it comes to that?
If I had to give an honest answer, we are definitely in a better place when it comes to destigmatizing HIV. However, stigma in itself has taken a different form, a different shape. Now it's no longer the public display of, someone stigmatizing you in a way where everyone's aware of. It will come in the subtle questions that I mentioned earlier, where you're going to be asked, is that why you're skinny? HIV does not have a look.
Oh.
It's those things that people still ask. I think I want to say scariest opinion, because I was like, are we reading enough? Where someone asked me, what is my life expectancy? At this point, I stood there thinking to myself, we still have a long way to go, because when I interact with people, it would be the most educated of people, human beings, people that you wouldn't expect to have or carry that certain mindset when it comes to stigmatizing HIV, that we unfortunately still have as a country. When it comes to the teaching, to the platforms that educate, there's definitely education there, but I also feel like sometimes it comes with a lot of ignorance when have access to such information. It's a different story for people, for the communities where there's HIV is a taboo, let alone sex between a parent and a teenager, to educate on how to abstain, use a condom, and so forth. But in spaces where you'd expect at least someone to do a 2-second Google search.
A Google search.
Just 2 seconds, And I do feel like we have a long way to go, but I really am happy when it comes to some of the initiatives that I've seen, because majority of the ones I've seen have understood that we have to start young, right? Most of the time when we educate, yes, we educate the older generation, but if you've seen, we now have instances where the most common group that is positive are males that are 45 plus and teenagers 15 at 15.
Talk about that. Please,
right?
Please talk about that. Please, I want to hear more about that.
Because one of the shows, I'm literally just now advertising, but one of the shows that beautifully portrayed that was The Polygamist, where they showed that most of the time, right? You have a girl child that comes from a very disadvantaged community, and they dream or fascinate about going into a world. It's a good life, the soft life, right? Then you have a 45-year-old man who, I can't even come up with the words to describe the character of such a man, that will see this 15-year-old as someone they could be intimate with, right? And the stats now are showing that these people, these teenagers, are not getting HIV from their age mates. It's these older generations, these older men.
They're preying on these kids.
Exactly, where they pry onto these teenagers and they fall victim of all of this. And that's how the stats are that high. And we're only talking about the percentage of the males that know their status and that aren't on ARVs. And there's another percentage of them that haven't even tested, but that are positive, and it's unfortunate. But yeah,
so unfortunate.
It is
oh my gosh, this is very sad. Nqobile, is this why you started the Nkosi Foundation? I found that. Please tell me about it, because I know you work a lot with young people and communities. So what are the realities of HIV and health inequalities do you see?
I rarely ever share my HIV story for obvious reasons, because in as much as it's my story to tell, but I also still have to protect the dignity of not only my family, but just the people that are around me as well. But in sharing that, when I found out my status, I was 19. I was a teenager. Fortunate enough for me, I was not active. And just the mere thought of me going to go get tested, you wouldn't think someone who's not intimate and has no reason to believe, I should go get tested, to think in that manner.
So why did you just wanted to know? Were you just curious?
So the story is, I worked with this NPO. I've always been involved in nonprofit work and so forth. And in our varsity, we come in. The mobile clinics usually would be available to all students that obviously cannot afford medical aid or anything. Just it would be a whole day where it's dedicated to anyone who can come in to go test. And me walking in, it was with my best friend Nqobile Mbatha, who happens to, I'll call her my sister, because I don't think the things we've been through, she does not qualify as just a friend.
Yeah.
That's my sister
Yeah.
now.
No, that one's a sister.
So walking into that, we were just like, let's go get tested. This should be fun. We will learn. We'll ask questions, Essentially, I went there to educate myself. And boy, was I educated, because
Oh
I
my
get
gosh,
there.
Nqobile.
And funny enough, I'll always tell the story and say, when God wants something to come out, it will always come out. When he says now's the time, it is the time. And I remember I texted my father before going in. And I remember at that point where my phone started blowing up. Obviously, I'm getting tested. I'm still like asking questions. At that point, the counselor was probably just tired of me, but I'm just asking questions. Okay, what are we doing now? What's going on? And I look over, my best friend is done. And I'm like, why is mine taking so long?
Yeah.
And then I then see the types of questions that she starts asking me. Even though it still doesn't click, she asks, is your mom around? Where is she? And I tell her she's already passed. And she's like, okay. And by the time she asked me that question, I didn't realize that she had already pricked my second finger and she was already doing a second test. And even then, I always say I admire how calm she was, because when I say I was literally caught off guard, I had no idea that she was doing a second test or trying to gain more information before she can actually just like burst my bubble. And I remember she says to me, go into the mobile clinic. And I always say, this is just the funny story or funny part of it, where I say, we already knew if you're told go into the mobile clinic, it's already, you already know the person's status. Unfortunately, so I'm thinking to myself, why am I going to go get weighed in the mobile clinic? What's going on? It doesn't hit me up until I pick up my phone and I check, and I'm seeing the messages scroll down. It's like, okay, I'm seeing the message and my dad says, Mntanami, which is my child. Please don't tell anyone. Just keep it private. Whatever they tell you, it's okay. Just know that I love you. And I take it as that, right? And that's essentially how I found out. But the whole idea of me wanting to educate myself from another topic that I had no knowledge of, and as much as I was exposed to the distant relatives and family members that were often diagnosed, and we watched them go through it, and we never asked any questions because these things are in our families. And the NPO came naturally because I understood that at 19, if I hadn't asked certain questions, if I hadn't been intrigued by certain things that I wanted to learn about that often impacted my community and my family directly also, I can't imagine what my life would have been. And with the Nkosi, I envision empowering young people enough to know where to seek information, where to get healthcare, and ask the uncomfortable questions, because sometimes also it's simply you meeting someone else who's positive, who can relate, who will understand where you're coming from, and will be able to guide you from a lived experience. Sometimes that's all you need. You can comfort me and be okay, but sometimes I just want someone who's going to understand that I woke up very tired today and I don't want to take my pill. How do you navigate the pill fatigue? And that's why the Nkosi Foundation exists. It's the three pillars are support, education, and research. And I ensure that I try to push all these things into creating a platform that's going to genuinely and truly empower people and be accessible. Totally. Healthcare is, as much as there are mobile clinics, but when you actually go to a clinic as an HIV positive person, the treatment is different. And that's why you find most people not wanting to go into a mobile clinic, because you're going to get judged. You have an works there that know your mom, your sister, your someone that's going to tell you.
They're going to
It's going
talk
to tell them,
about it in the
"Yeah,
community. Yeah.
you were
They go back
there,"
that, oh, we saw
you
her.
know?
She was in that queue.
Yep. And they
That
know.
queue.
Yep, Thursdays we're going in. Thursdays are for in. We know what's going on back there,
Mm.
And I really wanted it to be something that's like that. And when I say my three pillars would support, I ensure that we
Mm.
host healing spaces. Healing spaces was for my older target, because when I
Yeah.
started, I obviously started it at 27, and the lens in which I now saw my diagnosis and just people around me was different. So I wanted to create that community. And when we created healing spaces, it's where we literally brought in a medical practitioner who came in through our
Mm.
educational segment to teach these women that in as much as we share our vulnerable sides and just speak, because that's what it is. I believe speaking
Yes.
heals so much. We learn from
True.
each other, and we're
True.
able to teach the next person and guide them. And something that you could be struggling with, the next person could be struggling with the same thing too. And if you find someone that says me too, it makes
Mm.
you less isolated and alone in whatever you're dealing with. And that's why
Oh,
from
Nqobile, I am so moved by your story. Like, I'm really so, so, so proud of the steps that you took, because I'm just thinking, had it been someone else, they would have just freaked out. You stop studying, your life derails. But you absorbed it. You told yourself that despite whatever this diagnosis is, you're going to learn about it and try to equip yourself with knowledge and still continue and be successful. It's a really beautiful story, and thank you. It's not often that one, shares openly their status. Thank you for that, because whoever's listening, they will also maybe think that maybe there's something I'm not sure about, but from this conversation, maybe someone will be motivated to go and get tested. Thank you for sharing. It's
thank
not
you.
easy, but thank you very much, Nqobile. Thank you.
Thank you, Pang.
You know, and through your work, what would you say you've learned about the people that you serve and the people that you work with? What have you learned from them or about them?
I think the most important one is because I work with a community. Like I said, the medical practitioner that I work with. Funny enough, I met through TikTok. Again, the power of social media, because I
No?
posted my story and my vision, and people approached. We can actually assist. I'd love to avail myself because I have this particular set of skills that I feel will be essential for the organization. And one of the things I learned is that we come from the saying, it takes a village to raise someone. We come from a village, right? And when we look at how we work with communities, we have to understand that we have to teach them so that they're able to teach the kids, so that the kids are able to interact with each other in a manner that doesn't negatively impact a child that says, I was, and it's not a matter of now stigmatizing these children. So I learned that in whatever it is that you do, you cannot seek to assist a community that you know nothing of.
Mm,
Or
mm, mm,
to
mm.
involve them in the work so that they feel a huge part of that plan. It's the same with law. I always say the law needs to ensure that it also makes provision for the people that have the lived experience of being HIV positive,
Yeah,
the people that have
yeah.
been infected, the people that have dealt with it in a certain way or experienced it in a very harmful
Mm, mm, mm,
others then
mm.
the law into that. So a lot of the times things that I always say, if you are going to work into a community, or want to bring in some form of innovation, know the people that you serve, because it's going to be for them. If you're going to build a model that's centered around them, why
Yes.
not involve them? You know?
Mm, 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 mm. And on that point, when you're working with young people and, you're bringing all these awareness campaigns, obviously, to them, I'm also, I like community work, and I'm sure a lot of people that like community work will also listen to this. But what should we instill in them to allow them now to become agents, active agents of, social transformation within the communities, what kind of skills should we instill in them?
I love this question because most of the time you get someone tell you, I can't do it because I don't have the resources. But
Yes.
essentially, it starts with what you have and where you're at in that moment. So a skill that I would love for everyone to have, or just, be friends with, knowing
Yeah.
that you have to start somewhere. You're not going to have all the resources that you need. Hell, you don't even need to be preaching in a big stadium to move or teach someone or make a difference in someone's
Yeah.
life. You essentially just need to, with the little that you have, start there and it will expand. Anything else that needs to come through from there will flow naturally. But you have to start with what you have. That's how change is made. And that's how you invite people that
Yeah.
can help you. You come up with an idea, put it out there, people come to you if they'd like to assist, and they do. And I've experienced, if anything, if anyone is looking at Nqobile Mbatha and seeing the work
Yes.
that I do, I am literally just a speck of a community that has come together to assist and say, what do you need? We have this, we have that. Is there anything outstanding? Would you like us to?
How can I help?
How can
How
I
can I
help?
help?
I mean, we are people because of people. It's in our DNA to understand that you can't work. I had a mentor that would say that I'd always tell her that I have this thing in my mind where I want to do things on my own because I can do it in a
Yeah.
specific way. She says if you want to move fast, you can do it alone. That's great for you.
Yeah.
But if you want to move with intention, you have to bring in the people that are willing to assist you and guide
Oh,
you
I
so
like
that it
that.
becomes in a better way so that you get to your destination kahle
Yeah.
without having to leave anyone behind. It's up to you.
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, Nqobile.
Kakhulu, kakhulu, kakhulu,
Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. Yo,
kakhulu.
Mntanasekhaya, you're doing a good job, I tell you. So tell me, why
Start.
do people resonate more with stories, like heartfelt stories rather than stats and policies? There's always stats that this year the numbers went up, went down of infections, and now we've got new medication and so forth. Why do we like stories, do you think?
I honestly think, and I always, I'm going to answer this just based off of me as Nqobile and say, when it comes to statistics, it's a percentage, it's a number, right? But when there's a story behind that, there is a certain level of resonating with what they're saying. They could be saying something you've never experienced, but there will be certain aspects that you're going to relate to that specific story. It humanizes the experience, whereas stats just give you a percentage of there's 10,000 people or 8 million people in South Africa that are living with HIV. Then when you hear a story, you get to understand why this person was either, God forbid, raped, born with it, or
Yes.
got it from a partner or someone that they trusted wholeheartedly. So when you tell stories, you get to teach and educate people so that they see themselves in all these stories. And if it's something that's meant to create or generate change, you're able to see that it's possible. If that person can tell their story and look at how far they've gone through with their diagnosis or whatever it is that they've had to deal with, you're able to be motivated from where you seated as opposed to seeing a statistic of 2% that's there that you don't even understand what that 2% means. But when someone tells a
Yeah.
story, they could be telling a
Yeah.
story from an experience
Yeah.
that you may meet a friend, a partner that has shared something like that, and just you also knowing how to navigate a specific situation as well. So I feel like that's a huge that's a huge aspect of how people learn. We literally had shows, your
Exactly.
soul buddies. That's how kids learn because you watch something entertaining, but at the end of it all, it comes out with a nugget. It's one of the best ways to essentially educate people. I always say when you're dealing
Yeah.
in fact, through all walks of my life, I always say what makes me either good at my job or anything that I engage in is because I am understanding that I'm working with a human being. That means I have to take cognizance of their mental capacity, their emotional state. If the client walks in and they are distraught from a divorce, I can't just be talking, here's my invoice before anything else. I need to first speak to you as a human being, because yes, you're here to seek help, but understanding that I'm dealing with a person who has feelings, emotions, and has felt things, you have to understand before you can then do anything. So that's where storytelling comes in. You get to tug at people's heart, teach them, inspire, and also people seeing themselves. It's so important.
Yeah. And tell me, podcasters and, radio personalities and, all of these digital platforms, are they doing the responsible thing in terms of challenging stigma and also, amplifying underrepresented voices? Are these platforms doing justice to this kind of conversation? Are they doing it ethically?
100%. I've seen some really, really good shows that I love watching because of how much they share information and also understanding their audience. I think the most important part is I could have a podcast or a show, but if the people that I'm trying to reach and educate aren't resonating with what I'm trying to teach them, then it would obviously not be, it wouldn't be the best case scenario, right? But I definitely believe that our podcasters are the people that are able to share these experiences and teach and even and give the people the platforms to share their stories too, because we only learn through seeing these stories and hearing about it. Unfortunately, people don't no longer read. They no longer pick up a newspaper to read, and the fastest way to get people information is to literally put it on a TikTok video, put it on Instagram, or know, the attention span has somehow shifted. So we've now had to find ways and means to try and ensure that education is still spread, but in a manner that reaches everyone. Adults have TikTok now. I think they've moved. They've even
Exactly. Everyone is moving. Everyone is moving.
Your audience is everywhere now. And then when it comes to content creators, I really love the people that take the time to create content that is centered around educational topics. I'm not saying everyone who's a content creator now needs to mountains and speak social impact or human rights advocacy, but any content creator that understands the power of influence that they have and utilizes it in the best case scenario, for me, I'll always be so grateful for that, because you have a platform and people really are looking towards you, and you never know who you could be inspiring or educating or teaching just by simply creating or even creating, because sometimes it's a topic that people know nothing of, but because a certain content creator has made content around that, they're able to gain more intel on what exactly is going on with the world, I really love about content creators and podcasters for being able to give us the platform to speak on these topics. We wouldn't be advocates without the social chemist, the social chemist.
Thank you, man.
Podcast, you understand? We really do.
Because there's so much, and there was something important you said, that even those that are educated would give you a sly mark, that why are you so thin?
Yep.
And so you want to create a platform where you broaden. They're educated maybe in a specific area, but this kind of conversation, my hope is that if there's something they don't understand, they can just click on the video and talk to somebody knowledgeable, such as yourself, to get that extra information which they don't have.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sensibilization. English, okay? What's the word? You know what I'm trying to say? Where people are just perpetuating. Yes, there's a lot of it.
In itself, the word in itself is misinformation. That's it. It's you not fully grasping or understanding that some things don't work the way you think. There's proven facts, there's statistics, there's certain things that you need to educate before anything. And the scary part is a rumor could go in. Someone could say right now, Nqobile Mbatha did not. How many people do you believe would be fact checking what is? If anything, it would be Nqobile. Is that the girl that was, that the lawyer? Is that the lawyer?
The lawyer.
you know, as opposed to people sitting down and actually researching, okay, 1, 2, and 3 happened, what happened, or if the headline is someone killed someone, only to find at
Yes.
the end it was self-defense. Very few people actually dig in to inquire about
People don't.
they don't. It's the
People
same with
don't.
HIV. We still perpetuate the nicknames that that were harmful to people, that made people not want to share these things, or perpetuating how a person's supposed to look when they're HIV positive, or just people assuming they can literally perform a medical exam with their eyes on you, and that's not
You
the case.
see?
Yeah,
You see?
it's misinformation, and it's scary because the domino effect of misinformation or stigma now forces people that have just recently tested positive, are living with HIV, into a corner of, I don't want to share because I've heard how my cousin or my aunt speaks about people that are positive.
Yeah.
And that right there is so harmful,
Yeah.
because you could either choose to be the person that educates them, but because of the stigmas and how harmful they are, it becomes harder for people living with HIV to actually share with their family or even be comfortable. And you'd be surprised, people can't even share with their mothers or their brothers or anyone close to them, simply because of,
Yeah.
I've heard it, like, or how do they speak about
Yeah.
HIV? Why on earth would they not,
What?
you not treat me
Why
in
would
that
they
manner?
understand me?
It's scary. So when we teach young children to be the ones that are the peer educators, they come in a car and say, "Mom, do you know the HIV tholakala kanje, kanje, na kanje? Do you know the difference between HIV and AIDS?" Because I've met people that don't know the difference between the two,
Yes.
or
Let's
assume
talk
that,
about that.
meh,
Nqobile, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that and relate it to access to medication, because there's something you said earlier on, that HIV doesn't have a look. Is it because of the medication, or what is it? Please talk about that. Please talk about,
so
because really, to some people, it's one word, eh? Une AIDS.
100%,
Une AIDS.
100%. And I had to explain, right? And when I would share my story, I had to explain that I had full-blown AIDS when I found out, right? But you must understand that there are stages before one reaches AIDS. And that's usually the HIV. Essentially, HIV is the human immunodeficiency virus, right? It's when your body, has no immunity over a virus, right? Because it's taken over so much so that social mzimba have literally decided to put their guns down and they cannot assist you. So what people need to understand, there is your stage 1. This is the acute, the small infections where you start getting either fluish, you get little marks on your body, and that's when the infection has obviously started. Stage 2, this is at a point where now your immune system is not giving out. This is when the secondary symptoms are now going to come in, your TB, and the 3 things that are affected that I also experience: your ears, your nose, and throat. Those are the first things that you will experience, because when your immune system is weak, the quickest things to go are the ear, nose, and the throat, right? And for me, I almost lost my hearing because I constantly had to go in for an ear operation where the infection was just fighting and fighting and fighting to a point. Had I not found out on time, I would probably be deaf by now, if anything, right? And then when that happens, at that point, your immune system, your soldiers are just, in how I describe them, because I want to visualize what happens in your body, to make it more palatable and you understanding what exactly, or how the virus works in your body. Because I often get asked, but how did you survive a full 19 years with no ARVs? So then it means I'm going to live. Why would I
Yes.
even take them if that's the case? But you must understand that behind closed doors, I had stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. At that point, I was down. I had TB, to a point where I had the TB that I was refusing to even take the TB medication. Like, my body just rejected it, right? The most aggressive
Yeah.
TB, because you can imagine, over a period of years of me not having been on ARVs, my immune system is at lowest. The copies of my CD4 count is literally just, it's that bad. By the time I find out, at that point, at this point, it's when the virus has taken over your entire immune system. AIDS. And That's the difference. I would say, if I had to describe it in layman's term, your HIV is basically you experiencing those symptoms, right? And another thing that people must understand, you can move from having full-blown AIDS right down to HIV to a point where you are now considered undetected, where your viral load has been so
Okay.
suppressed because you're consistently taking your medication, your pills, your multivitamins, you're eating healthy, and everything's it's reduced. This is also a point where I still have to educate people that I could go test with the rapid test, and I have done it before. I shared on my platform where if your viral load has been suppressed to such a point where your copies are right down, your immune system is at its healthiest and best, right? It's been fully suppressed. If you were to take a test, it would come out negative. And it's not because you no longer
Aha.
have the virus, but it's just
Mm.
because it's suppressed. To get accurate HIV test, it would mean you having to go into a lab and getting your bloods done, or a GP to get a blood test done to actually show that yes, this person's positive, but their viral load has been suppressed. So that's essentially the difference between HIV and full blown AIDS. And that
Mm.
people must just understand that difference. And just because I have HIV doesn't mean I have AIDS. That's
Yeah,
one
because
thing.
it's often like one
It's
word. It's
considered
often
one
just
word.
one word.
It's
Yes.
essentially the symptoms and where a person is when it comes to their medical history at this point. Because I'm now HIV positive, but my viral load has been suppressed. And like I said,
Hmm.
if I were to go get tested, which I have, my results come back negative. Not because I'm not HIV positive, but because my
Yes.
viral load has been suppressed and
And
still
you,
is
because you're
suppressed.
doing the right thing to your body. You're
Exactly.
doing the
And
right thing.
yeah. And then the stigmas usually would come up when people assume that if you're not taking your medication, you're skinny. And the moment you start taking them, now you're gaining. And that's why
Yes.
most people then fear going to a clinic to get my pills because, she was skinny not so long ago. 2 months later, she is too
Yeah.
big. Siyakhuluphala umzimba. She said, "Uyamthanda amaphilisi."
Yeah.
And it didn't happen for
Yeah.
me. Sometimes, and it didn't happen for me, or they assume they missed that stage. But because genetic bias, we are tall and skinny, that's literally
Yes.
how it is. It has nothing to do with me taking my pills or that transition. People seem to think they can almost like pick out when someone is either on their medication,
Yes.
you know, but it has no look.
Yes.
It has no
Oh
look.
my. That I really found very refreshing, really, because that actually is something I'm going to use when somebody says something against somebody who's probably not
Yeah,
HIV positive. And then I'll ask, what is the look? Because there's
exactly.
actually no look, you know?
At,
There's
at
actually
all.
no look. Joanna, you've come so
The
far,
health.
hey?
Thank you. No, it has been a
You've come
journey. I
so
will not
far,
lie.
really.
It,
You've come
it
so
has been a
far.
journey.
And then look, I'm also on chronic medication. I can understand the pill fatigue, but how has medication changed from when you found out your diagnosis and now? How is the medication in terms of side effects and also the
Mm,
number of number of pills
the polls.
that you have to
That's
take
usually
per
the
day
most
and so
common
forth?
question. Sorry to interject, but that's usually the most common
Hmm.
question to assume. How many polls are you taking? It's different for each person depending on where they're at in their diagnosis journey. For me, I was fortunate enough that
Okay.
it was one poll. I do know that as a child, most of the time it would either be served something that will be more palatable for a young toddler or a child that has been infected. It's different, right? For me, it was one pill from the moment I started, but the side effects when I started compared to now, they were worse. I always paint a picture that think of a king that was ruling all over your body, and
Mm.
then this pill comes in trying to destroy everything it's built. It will be a fight. I went through the most with my
Yeah.
pills to a point where you feel like I can't do this. I can't take these. Is this what my life is going to be? You go back.
Yeah.
They tell you your body has to get used to it. You must understand that there's a fight going on. I always tell people it feels like a war is going on because essentially it
Inside.
is. Your body has this virus that is all over Mzimba wako, your body, And essentially, if you're going to be taking something to try and suppress this, it's going to be a fight. And you're trying to think of it as you trying to also uyaqeqesha your soldiers to have a bit more power or amandla to try and fight off this infection. So some of the things I think I remember when I first started, the day, in fact, the morning after taking it at night, because I didn't feel anything the night. I was so confident. I walked out of the mobile clinic thinking, you know what, we're going to take this pill. We are going to live a healthy life. I'm educated enough. I know everything there is to know about this. I've got the morning after I wake up, I couldn't even move my head. I remember having to, and mind you, I was at rest at the time with 4 other roommates. They didn't know. They know now why my sister was protective over me. And I remember calling her, going, I can't move. I couldn't even speak. I remember I just ring my phone. Thank God for touch screens, but I just like emergency call her to tell her that to have her come downstairs to essentially figure out what's going on. I couldn't move my limbs. I remember her carrying me to rest, to just literally put me in the shower and gaze, because it was such a fight. And it was one of the worst times when you first take those pills. It is one of the worst times. For me personally, it was a mess. I didn't hallucinate because I've heard people do hallucinate, but it felt like I could feel my body just like either getting skinnier or just like shrinking because I couldn't keep food in. But I suddenly just full, but everything just feels like it just wants to come out. But not being able to walk was the scariest for me because I kept thinking, what if this pill just like makes me not able to walk for like the rest of my life? What happens? But it was just because I did not know. I didn't have the information to say, you're going to experience these side effects and it's okay. You have to stick it out until your body gets used to it. And it changes. It really does change depending on what pill you're on. I know certain pills have certain side effects. Some of them give you insomnia where you essentially just stay up and either work on a timeline to say, instead, let me take it during the day so that at least I'm up during the day, go to bed. I can just sleep like a normal person or feel a bit, like myself, because I felt like I didn't know Nqobile again. I felt like I just had to relearn who I was, transitioning from being negative to now being positive and having this pill that you have to take every single day. And God forbid it has the side effects that am I going to be living?
That is now making you sick, because it's like I was healthy before. Now look at this pill that just
make me feel better. What is going on? It was that fight where it felt like, why isn't it making me better? What is going on? I just have to stop. And essentially you learn. You just have to be patient with yourself. And I was fortunate enough. I always say community. I was fortunate enough. My best friends or my sisters, I call them, were there for me to remind me that it's okay. Yes, it feels different. Yes, you're going through this, but you're not alone. You're going to feel it. Yes, we don't know what's going on in your body, but we're going to be here. And one of the things when you speak, you have to ask for assistance. I remember when I couldn't even study because I was just so depressed. I was like, because you asked if what happened to school. There was a point where I literally said to myself, I just need a break. I just need 1 year off. I want to go home.
From everything,
Reminding me things I didn't know. It just blew up my entire life. Why is this happening? I just want to get away from here and take a break and just be away from this reminder. And I remember my sister telling me, you have to stick it out. Or she would just say, let's just finish this exam. Let's finish this exam, then we'll go. And I felt like I was going to fail. I approached one of my lecturer and, God bless that woman, Dr. Matadi. She literally allowed me into her space. And I remember when I just told her what was going on in that year and I started crying and she prayed for me. And she was just like, anything you need, let me know. I will guide you. Should there be a situation where you need to write from home or me giving you study notes or anything, let me know. I'll make sure. And really, I was fine. But you have to also understand that you need to reach out to people to get the assistance that you may require. But it's a journey. It's a full-on journey that you have to have community. And again, I'm always going to go back to Yenkosi exists. We have a WhatsApp group with women
Mm.
living with HIV, and some of them are newly diagnosed. They share the experience. They come in, we tell them it's okay. They come in and say, how do you guys deal with acceptance? Is it supposed to feel like this? Yes, I know I'm not going to die, but and then we come in to say
Yeah.
100%. Perhaps it's not you accepting, but it's just you understanding that you live with this,
Mm,
and
mm,
it's
mm.
fine. It's okay. We see you. Or something lighter where they'll come in and say, I'm dating now. How do you guys disclose?
Yeah.
How do I share this with the person? And we share our experiences. And we've been
Mm.
that the doctor that I work with, the Dr. Linda Ngono, she has now brought in or assisted the ladies with bringing in a counselor, someone who is
Mm.
going to guide them through every step. Because what we've noted is mental health is such an important thing.
Oh, say that again.
Mental health, you
Say
cannot
that again.
function at any place in any form without you being right here. And you can
Mm.
imagine adding on to finding out you're positive. God forbid you find out you're pregnant. This man is nowhere to be seen. You're experiencing these things. Who do you talk to? Because you can't share it with your
What do
friends.
you do?
Handshake with friends. And it's one of the things, again, I will always say I appreciate about community, because she was able to come in and say, what do you need? I've also been in this group long enough to understand that these women also require some assistance when it comes to counseling and therapy. And I'm like, you literally read my mind, because healing spaces is
Wow.
supposed to heal us in the spaces that we are in, wherever we are, whatever we share, we're supposed to at least be there for each other. And that's what it is.
Oh, really, that is wonderful, eh? In fact, it's a community that you have your own community because you need that for yourself. But then what I find amazing about you is that you're also taking yourself out and you're becoming a community and a source of comfort for others as well. And I admire that.
Thank you.
Because it's not easy, it's really not easy. And like when you're looking ahead now, what conversations do you think we should have in South Africa in terms of um, equitable and compassionate and also stigma-free South Africa? What should we be talking about in order for us to get to that point?
It's a very good question. I always circle back to destigmatizing HIV, because I want people to understand there are chronic illnesses and diseases that a person sometimes cannot bounce back from. And with HIV, we do not have a cure as it stands, or know of a cure at least. But we have ARVs or ART that is made available to people, but people are scared. I want us to understand that in everything that we deal with in life, we are human beings. We feel, we go through things, and anything that's around us, we need to ensure that we understand that when you engage with people, engage with them as if you would like someone to engage with you. Because I always, as much as I bring myself into it, and I always want to pull myself out, but also I come back into, if I was telling someone about my diagnosis, how would I want someone to react? Sometimes I may not have, because,
Yes.
but like
Yes.
when people are educated and they've seen, because not everyone experiences someone who tells them their status, or let alone someone who is open about it, the way that I would think I am. When we have conversations, the more we desensitize and destigmatize it, I want people to understand that we now open it up for people to be comfortable enough to go to a mobile clinic, to get access to their treatment and successfully take and reduce or decrease the viral load. But because of this hurdle that is misinformation, it makes it so hard and so impossible for a huge, and I don't mean a small number of people, but a huge number of people that immediately after diagnosis, they have to take at least 2 or 3 months to process first, to figure out, am I going to take this pill? Should I go now? What is going on? Or even just simply defaulting, because now you've entered a space where if I'm having a sleepover, I can't pull out my pill and drink it because someone's next to me and they're going to ask me, what pill are you taking? You
Yes,
understand?
what is that? Share maybe. If you say it's for a headache, then they'll want to, if you say, oh no, it's for my chest. Oh,
Nah.
maybe share. I had a cough last
Prescribing
week.
it and putting it in an ibuprofen container, and then someone goes, hey, can you please give me a pill? Now how do you handle such situations? So I really genuinely believe that the more we destigmatize and we talk about these conversations or have these conversations more openly, people must understand how much of a domino effect that is going to impact our viral load, how we are the leading country when it comes to HIV, but it makes you question because we have so much at our disposal to be amongst the country that genuinely has the largest, and I mean the largest number of people that are living with HIV. And it's sad because it's one simple thing, stigma. It's a ripple effect to everything else.
Yes. Gosh. So where to from here now? Where to from here? Because I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking we can go on until next week. What's next for
Nah.
Nqobile Mbatha? What's next
Oh,
for my attorney? What's next for you?
listen, my focus right now is with the Yenkosi Foundation. I'm trying to plan the second healing spaces. I know a lot of people that have met me through HIV over coffee, which is also run by this incredible lady, young lady, younger than me, in fact, Nomonde. And with healing spaces, I'm hoping to open it up to dialogues, to have these conversations, to invite. My main thing is in having these sessions to also bring in the help that people require, the medical practitioner, clinical psychologist, and someone with a lived experience, because it's important to see yourself in the next person so you know that you too can get there. It's going to be hard. It's going to require strength from you, but to understand that when you have community and you have people around you, you're able to do better and feel better and thrive. So for me, at this point, it is ensuring that Yenkosi continues its work. I do want to work. I'd love to work with the UN AIDS. I feel like that is my my ultimate end goal. If anyone's listening.
Yes. Yes.
But if anything, right now, I'll start with what I have and where I am. The Yenkosi
Man.
Foundation is where I'll start and I'll push because it's not only for me, it's for my mother who never had to continue this conversation. And it's for the family members that still feel like they can't share, they can't speak. And it is just for a 19-year-old me that was back there trying to educate herself and stumbled upon the biggest form of education that would ultimately change her life. And it should
Unexpected.
definitely unexpected.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Nqobile, mntanasekhaya, enkosi kakhulu. Oh,
Thank you
ngiyabulela
for
mntanasekhaya. Yo, thank you so much for just opening up and for sharing your journey. It's not often, mntanasekhaya, to hear this kind of honesty and someone bearing themselves out for everyone to learn from. I want to say that I know that life and your journey that you've embarked on is only going to grow from here onwards. Enkosi
Thank you so
kakhulu sis.
Yeah,
Ngiyabulela.
Mina, thank you. I usually, like I said, I'm always intentional about the podcast or the interviews that I'm invited into because sometimes they chase the story as opposed to the work. I just want to be out there to share my work, to encourage people, to show that we change things for people like myself that are living with HIV, as opposed to just getting she was positive. What happened?
Yeah,
And I really enjoyed it.
and that's is not often the story, That is not often the story. It's for me in any case is the story that led to the success. You see, how you got the HIV is not really important, but so now you got it. And then what is more important, I think, was I think we fixate on the why and how,
Yes. And
How,
the stigma again.
yes, how, is that how that makes people don't want to talk? That's a kaya enkosi kakhulu. I really
Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
appreciate this enkosi kakhulu.
Bonga mina.
Yo, ndiyabulela sis.
That's all I have for you today. Remember to follow us on social media at the Sociable Chemist podcast. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on your notification button. My name is Professor Fanelwange Jai, and I'll see you on the next episode.